is a commendation CPA and CS. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome him. He's going to take us through the session. But before he speaks, I'd like my colleague Clinton to say hi and welcome him.
Thank you so much, Moses. Can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I want to really say thank you for such a wonderful intro that you've done there. And I will not say much, but I will just welcome CPA to take over for the interest of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Back to you, CPA Kenneth.
Thank you, Clinton. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, participants. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm not very far from the road. As all of us may be aware, there is an activity that is called government onboarding on e-citizen. We will be mentioning about that as we progress. But at any point when I'm not audible, then Moses and Clinton, kindly let me know so that I'm able to adjust accordingly. Well, this is data protection 2. In the first meeting, we had data protection 1, and just a quick recap, we saw what data is. We briefly brushed through the Data Protection Act 2019. Indeed, we also saw how we offered our information into those loyalty cards, Uchumi Club, Nakumat, and everything else. We had an overview of the overall data protection regulations from the EU Data Protection Regulation to the AU Convention or the Malabo Convention. We also looked at the POPI Act in South Africa, just to give us a glimpse of how these regulatory processes are implemented. Today, we are taking it further, looking at data protection and including data privacy. So then, when we talk of data protection, it's basically a function of your data security and your privacy practices. Protection on the other side would mean internal or external threats that have to be stopped, and we are talking of hackers accessing your data storage. And of course, we all understand what hackers do. We know what cyber attacks do, or web attack, system attack, all those things. That then means what we call in protection. When we talk of privacy, it's a function of how data is collected, shared, and used. I've just told you that today there's a big meeting on onboarding of the e-citizen. And I'm just looking at the terms and the conditions of e-citizen and their data privacy. I would interest you that for those of us who are working in the public sector, then you are able to go through that as we are going to discuss. So basically about data security, that would involve things like how you authenticate that particular system, issues around encryption, issues around prevention of data loss, issues around monitoring your threats. And this monitoring of threats, as we will be able to see, you can also automate security actions so that the system is able to monitor the same for you. In terms of data privacy, we are talking about legislations. Of course, I've had a recap. The legislations are all those rules and regulations that help you in your data protection. third-party contacts, the policies, and of course, it's expected that we have ICT policies, cybersecurity policies, intrusion prevention policy, and stuff like that. Of course, most importantly, there is what we call data governance. What are the governance processes around the data that you are holding and handling? Of course, DASRs and data erasures. DASRs basically means data subject access requests. In case some individuals are processing your data, you can request to see how data is being particularly being handled. Discovery and classification, basically monitoring your system and seeing where your sensitive data resides, and thereafter classifying the same and able to move forward on the same. There is a picture on the left, and I've titled this particular slide, Gaining the Whole World, but Losing Your Soul. As expected, I would expect that this session is interactive as and when it is required. And this is one point where I will request for anybody who can identify those people lined up in that photo. Perhaps Moses would help me look at the hands and get one individual to tell us, anybody who identifies with the photo on my right, where there are so many people gathered together. Anyone? Moses, you can let anybody who is ready, they can unmute and tell us if they identify with that photo.
Yes, I can see there's a hand that's been raised.
Yes, please let the hand so that they explain to us what they think of that photo or what they know about that particular photo.
There are some answers also in the chat box.
What have they said?
Abud Mongare is saying WorldCoin registration at KICC.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Can you proceed?
Yes, they've said it's a WorldCoin registration at KICC.
Yes, but there's someone is also talking. I think he can proceed.
Yes, let the person who is talking talk.
Yes.
Please go ahead and tell us. Well, I will proceed.
I think we've lost him.
Okay, I will proceed. It is well said that is the WorldCoin registration at KICC. That is indeed true, and that is barely a week or 2 weeks ago. We would be seeing and trying to understand what is this WorldCoin registration. Of course, WorldCoin is a cryptocurrency, but we would be interested to know why Kenyans would line themselves up that much and have their eyes scanned for 7,000 shillings. So what is it that really WorldCoin was doing in this? And does it relate to any of the data protection parameters that we are seeing on the other side? Does it the issues of personal sensitive information? Does it speak to your privacy? Does it speak to your data security? How much control do you have over that data orb, that WorldCoin orb that was taking your photos and everything? So how does it then relate to your personal security and all those personal issues? what about the internet and your records? And indeed, we then ask ourselves, are there rules that should govern such like things when they come to this point of time? Well, you can still see that gentlemen there in their WorldCoin t-shirts. And what we were being told is that that orb is basically to assist the WorldCoin, or it's called Word for Humanity, to help identify your humanness and the uniqueness. So they call it POP, proof of personal. And according to WorldCom, they're arguing that your iris is a unique identifier that nobody has. And they are relying on certain symbol attacks that had happened to other cryptocurrencies. And specifically, there's one called Ethereum Classic, which was hacked or attacked by the symbol attackers, and quite a substantial amount of money stolen from the crypto wallets. But is it really true that it was about POP? We are going to know Sam Altman, the person under this WorldCoin thing, is also a co-founder of the OpenAI with a laboratory in San Francisco in the US. And they are interested in the development of artificial general intelligence so that we see if we are able to get human beings or human persons that can be more efficient than you people seated here and attending this a particular presentation. Some people say that the truth is these people were checking your identity. So for 7,000, you are gaining the world, but losing your soul. I saw a clip going rounds on the internet, and the gentleman was saying that, hey, hata mimi nimekuja, hiyo do nikiget, mzinga ya chrome, apige kanyama yake, and life goes all the way. For him, that's a lot of money, just scanning your eye and getting 7,000. That is how unaware many of us are about things. But as one of the musicians sings called Meja, sisi wa Kenya tuna tabia zetu tu. Now, internet governance and cyber security. I've just talked about the issue around onboarding, and I was looking at the terms and the conditions of this thing called e-Citizen. And one of the things that I was seeing talks to issues around cyber security being you being responsible for that particular cyber security arrangements. And so what is this cyber security, even as we are onboarding? And I understand most of us, again, attending here, are working in organizations where you have a number of data, you have people and everything else. So it would be very, very important that we understand some of these things. How do we future-proof our data? How do we future-proof or safeguard the data that we have for business and personal data? So it is important to understand that one of the definitions of cybersecurity is a body of technologies, processes, practices that are designed to protect your networks, computers, programs, data from attack, damage, or unauthorized access. The other day, we talked about how the distributed denial of service was done, and the same e-Citizen was hit. So trust approach basically looks at all the particular networks, with the base being the orchestration and automation. Automation simply means dealing with putting one task forward online or something like that, while orchestration on the other side, you are now integrating those several tasks, automating them, and creating a workflow. Of course, once that has been done, there are issues around the visibility and analytics. You need to be able to see through your, some of those traffic are coming in through your firewalls and everybody else, analyze and see perhaps where your risk could be coming from. Of course, in that whole mix, the people sit on that orchestration, and therefore the visibility analytics must be able to do that. The data that sits there must also be monitored through all those scans and everything. Your devices, which includes even your mobile phones, and you will be able to see where we are talking of your own personal mobile phone. When you go home and you have these youngsters, and you give them to browse, do you have checks and balances just to ensure that some of the cookies that they allow complies to the privacy guidelines? Of course, the workloads that are flowing through the applications, and of course, the networks. It's important that all these are taken care of. And zero trust would simply mean that any access to your network must be verified. Once you have verified and confirmed that it is from a trusted source, that is when you allow anybody to access any of those resources. It's about very limited access to the available ICT resources upon confirmation and verification that you are a trusted source. I'll give a typical example of a bank that has very stringent policies and how you access and even bring a device or a gadget with their networks. I was in a serious dilemma with my board members somewhere in Naivasha. I had to travel all the way. When I came with my devices, but my devices could not be approved to log into their system. The Wi-Fi thing was not working there. So the protocols and the policies are such that if you have to introduce a new device, that device has to be scanned and it has to be taken to the US. The procedures are so stringent that we just had to wait. We opted not even to introduce our devices so that we were able to use their Wi-Fi. Because, of course, we are also told that there are a lot of attacks that occur through Wi-Fi, open Wi-Fi with the airports and everything else. So that just calls for that whole thing of us being more careful. There is something that I found very useful, and this I accessed on the 7th of August through a document, a software that I use for research, Zotero. And the article was in the Daily Nation titled Privacy Breaches of a Tech Phone Service Complaints to Communication Authority. And there was a photo of that hand that is breaking through from the computer or the laptop and accessing what you are having to the outside, breaching your privacy. So that particular data shows that confidentiality and the privacy breaches reported to the Communication Authority were at 26%. I think out of 180, 47 were basically on confidentiality and privacy breaches. One thing that tells us is that Kenyans are becoming more aware of the need to take their confidentiality and the privacy breaches more serious. Issues around phone and data services around 21%. Fraudulent calls and SMSs. Anti mtoto ameumwa na nyoka, nitumie kwa hii number. Such like now stand at 10.5. Of course, frequency interference as you are talking, then there's actually issues around charges on the subscriptions at 5.5. This is a local data that has been tabulated, and the source is actually indicated there. You can also get it, and if it interests you, you can read so that you get the writer's view towards issues around confidentiality and privacy breaches. What we are doing today is to increase our levels of awareness.
What do you mean? A copy of the contract?
Yeah, sure, it is in software.
Please, you are breaching our data privacy. You did it last time, today. You are giving us your information, which we don't need. Thank you. Now, information and data privacy. What are the implications of data breaches? Whenever data is breached, there are financial costs. If your network is attacked and your servers attacked, the normal issues around ransomwares being paid, and of course they pay them in a Bitcoin and everything. There's loss of reputation. You find yourself being cloned and done things, find photos of yours with your face, Photoshop, walking naked down the streets of Miami. There are a lot of things, serious implications that accompanies the data breaches. Now, coming back to the issue of the WorldCoin ORB, because one of the things that I will be doing would be looking at their privacy policy, or rather the consent form. So I'm just asking, what did you do with your eyes? Because it is the eyes that were being scanned. But before we go through that, I believe many of us have seen, because we talked of internet governance, we have seen the photos on my left and on my right, where when you are browsing, there is a small thing where you are supposed to accept cookies. And an example is your privacy. By clicking accept all cookies, you agree Stack Exchange can store cookies on your device and disclose information in accordance with our cookie policy. And we normally say accept all cookies, and then a cookie is stored on your device, and that cookie discloses your information, and in accordance with their cookie policy, which you have not read. The devil is in the detail. That cookie policy has terms and conditions that many a times don't favor your data protection, but rather those persons' data requirements. It is therefore important that even before we accept all these cookies, we read that cookie policy or the privacy policy that most of the times we never use. So many a times we say accept cookies, yes, please, you've clicked. And so it is at that point that you are gaining the whole world and just started losing your own soul. As you to your children, are the children aware that there are issues about privacy and the implication of clicking accept? Because normally that screen obscures what you want to read. And until you are able to accept or say something, your access to that site is not guaranteed. So I'm thinking those are just some of the things that we might just need to have a serious look at. Coming now to what we call the WorldCoin consent form, that I believe many of us have never bothered. I'm not sure if there are people here who also took their eyes for scanning. Maybe if you took your eye for scanning, at the end of this, you can tell us your experience. By then, we could also hear your experience. Now, the WorldCoin consent form takes you just the same way this other one takes you, that in accordance with our privacy policy. And of course, it is that privacy policy that we never take our time to read. So they say that by agreeing to this data consent form, you allow us to collect images of your iris and other sensitive data through the orb and transfer the sensitive data to our facilities in Germany and other countries for purposes such as training of our neural network for the recognition of human irises, as further described below. You also agree that the neural network is not error-free. Then there was an important notice done in capital letters that providing your consent and participating in the WorldCon project described below is completely voluntary, and you are under no obligation to give us your consent. However, if you do not give us your consent, your ability to participate in the WorldCon project at this time may be limited. You may change your mind and withdraw your consent at any time. Very interesting. From the MIT Technology Review, that is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Review, they've used the word deception, and that WorldCoin targeted countries. The first place I think where they went was Indonesia, these developing countries where people are poor. So they are telling you that you're supposed to give them their consent, but if you refuse, you will not get your 7,000. So wewe umepanga, umeshaona leo uko na mzinga ya Chrome, utakula kachoma, then somebody brings you a paper that if you don't sign that paper, then you miss your 7,000. You will sign it even without thinking twice. So therefore, it's targeting the vulnerable, the poor, and of course, areas where data protection laws are less stringent, because I don't believe that this agreement would see the light of the day in the EU or even in America, where they have their research labs and everything. But that is not all. That is just the beginning of that agreement. The provision on consent, and it was actually in paragraph number 4. I would share it. Moses reminded me to share a copy of that so that the team can read it for themselves and see how people wanatubeba ufala, and we have agreed to be bebwa ufala. That provision number 4 says we will collect the following sensitive data: high definition video and photograph of your body, face, and eyes, including your irises, visible and infrared. Infrared, I think I forgot to put a photo of a rat under infrared and the normal visibility. And of course, you know, infrared are rays and all those things. So that is what your eyes were also being subjected for, because it gives you a finer detail. Infrared cameras are meant when you are doing National Geographic and you want to see animals at night without the animals realizing that you are watching them, then you would use your infrared cameras. There is also contactless Doppler radar detection that is used to detect your heartbeat, breathing, and other vital signs. So through your eye, ambayo umekodoa mwenyewe, your heartbeats, breathing, and the vital signs are being picked by that particular gadget. Then your 3-dimensional mapping of your body and face. If it was true that what these guys were interested in the proof of personhood, your humanness and your uniqueness, kwani nani ajui yeye ni binadamu? Yes, they have AI, robots, and everything else, but this is part of the exposure that we had in that particular consent form. So they were taking more than just the purpose within which they were talking of securing their cryptocurrency. Under the Data Protection Act, Section 25 gives the principles under which data is supposed to be processed. Of course, there is a clause that talks also about the transfer of data outside Kenya, which is not supposed to be done unless there is proof of adequate data protection safeguards and consent from the subject data. I'm not sure if all those people that you saw there were given adequate data protection safeguards, how their data is going to be used, and that they validly and knowingly gave their consent. That is a topic that we may discuss until the cows come back home. Of course, Section 28, that data may be collected indirectly where the data subject has consented to the collection from another source. So do we say that those people lining up there had consented? Yes. And that is why the CS ICT was telling you that those are Kenyans who are giving their data voluntarily. So if I've given my data voluntarily, who are you then to question? Now you understand where CS Owalo was coming, because Section 28 say that if you have consented, but there are also roadblocks on that consent, the way tumeona pale juu. Now, let's look at still that consent clause and pick one of the cases in Czech Republic, which is still under EU. We talked of the EU data protection regulations. And there's this guy called Francesc Reins. That very difficult word simply means the Office for Personal Data Protection in the Czech Republic. And so there's this Reins who, after a very long time, was tired of thieves who would come to steal from his house. So then he installed CCTV cameras covering his compound, but there were also some CCTV cameras that are covering the public roads. And so these guys came, stole, and using those CCTV cameras, they were able to be arrested. So the Office of the Data Protection in Czech Republic ruled that this man had breached the data protection laws for using a camera system to collect personal data of persons moving along the street or entering the house opposite without their consent, without informing them, and as a data controller, he had not fulfilled the obligation to report to the processing, to the data processing office. In our previous presentation, we had talked of the notification obligation, that where you are going to use data that is likely to breach, you're supposed to notify that office. So in the Czech Republic, putting your CCTV to cover somebody walking on the streets, while for you, your intention was purely for personal or household activity, is an infringement on their right. That is how stringent their laws are. Come again to the next WorldCoin provision, and it reads, if you give us your consent to collect your sensitive data by photographing your iris, your face, your body using the orb, we will transfer your sensitive data to our teams in the United States India, Japan, UK, and Germany, because A, our research and development facilities are located in those countries. B, we are unable to operate the software we use to process your sensitive data where you live. Why? That should be telling. How are they going to process your sensitive data? Remember, there is the 3D of you. There are the vitals of you. There are your iris and other things. And this man is a co-founder of the OpenAI, who has a lab. We don't know whether it is your data that is going to be used for the genomic sequencing or genetic re-engineering and everything else, but you've already given it. And then it goes ahead that as a result, we may transfer to and store your data in part of the United States or elsewhere where privacy laws may be less protective of your data than the privacy laws in the EU, the General Data Protection Regulations, or GDPR, and which privacy laws may also be less protective than the privacy laws than where you live. So they are telling you that once we have harvested this, we are not going to be subject to your data protection law. We are going to process it where we have the opportunity to breach and do anything with what you've given us without being asked, including cloning you and putting you naked walking on Miami Beach. So in other words, coming to our own Data Protection Act, that clause means that you've given all your rights. Your right to access, your right to decision making, your right to be informed, right for erasure. Hakuna mahali utakuja kupata hii watu waambie sasa delete, or I have a right to be forgotten. Your right to object to the processing. It is being processed in an area where data protection laws are less restrictive. Your right to rectify anything. Useme tu uliingia sababu ya economy hii yetu, but you don't have that opportunity. You've hosted all these rights. You've gained your 7,000, but you've sacrificed all that which is expected you, the principles and the rights under Section 25 of the Data Protection Act. And so we are saying, we are still seeing how you are ostering your rights by just going na unakodoa macho kwa ob. There is another provision which was in paragraph 2, that risk of transfer. Because we are located in the US, we are not directly subject to the jurisdiction of the data protection laws of the EU or any other jurisdiction. As I was concluding my presentation the other time, somebody asked about this, and I spoke to issues around the jurisdiction. So now these guys are telling you in their consent form. But because the PLO Lumumba says, if you want to hide anything from Kenyans, hide it in writing. We don't read. So we are agreeing that if you are a resident of the EU and you share your data with us, we are required to comply with the GDPR. But it will be more difficult to assert your privacy rights in court in the United States if we do not comply. So where have you been left? These are people who've come to your house, taken your data, taken your information, taken your vitals, taken your 3D everything, robbed you, and left you in the open. Because basically all those things means all your data protection provisions are cancelled. You've hosted them. You've surrendered them. So anybody who was scanned doesn't have a recourse under this Data Protection Act because there are exclusions to that. And I saw that. I told you that I would also interest you in the terms and conditions of e-citizen. And before I came out to do this presentation, it has just been raised by our IT guy, because maybe I will project it, one of the disclaimers that they do not take responsibility. They are disclaiming any accuracy and all that pertains to the data that we are giving. So that is not something that we are going to watch. Yes, onboarding is good, but that data we must be sure. I'm glad the director indicated that they are going to protect it. So please read some of these documents, because that is where the devil lies, in the details. The risks for the exposed records, we have said, financially costly for the business. When you are paying your ransoms, your damaged reputation, your damaged brand, your exposed financial reports, your bank account numbers, credit card numbers, usernames, passwords, your customer details, your identity theft, cyber crimes. What if your Irish are used to register to conduct criminal activities and a robot is made that looks exactly like Son of Nyamolo, walking into the airports carrying drugs and everything else? I mean, the risks are just so many, and that is how we've been able to lose our soul. I've talked about Sam Altman, the co-founder of the OpenAI. I've also told you that in France, the French privacy watchdog have launched an investigation in that activities for Welcome. That other photo is in Indonesia, where the MIT Technology Review are calling it deception that is targeting the poor and the vulnerable. So basically, the poor being taken as the guinea pigs. And we've just seen how many of our guinea pigs were in the previous thing. Now you know, and you can confirm that indeed we had guinea pigs also from Kenya. So your electronic gadgets, your computers, your networks, your phone, how do we then relate to them? Your computers in this increasingly technological world can be used as a targets. People targeting your computer so that they get information that they would use to mine and breach your data, personal information, business information, and all that. It can also be a tool for the attack. We have just seen the orb, unakodoa tu macho, and it harvests you from head to toe. If you go to the website of the OpenAI, I think there's something they call deep learning. So how much do we know that the orb took from how your brains operate? We don't know. But that gadget was used for a tool for harvesting information. What do you do in increasing awareness and the knowledge of cybersecurity? What we are doing now, measures for individuals to protect themselves. I talked about your mobile phone and your children. In many WhatsApp groups, from around 6 when you are home, you would see something typed that doesn't make sense. Grr, 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 grr. Then you come and say, oh, my child is the one who posted that. Maybe you're in the same WhatsApp group with your boss and with something very serious has been done to that. How are you even protecting that? Is your child aware of those private? Suppose they were browsing a site on WorldCon and those cookies come. Have you informed them about those privacy guidelines, those cookie policies? Or you just give, then you accept the cookies, then the cookies are now tracking you and giving an opportunity to other people to access your networks and stuff like that. And so we talked of cyber hygiene, secure networks, secure security controls. We also talked about only the necessary information in the social media. Don't post so much because there are malicious human beings who might use your information for their own gain. We must also use secure devices. So secure device management is very important. Security standards for compliance, very key. All those data protection acts, regulations, the AU convention and everything else, then we must also back our critical information. We also need to strengthen our institutions. The Ministry of Information and Technology, the ICT Authority, the Communication Authority of Kenya, the proposed National Cybersecurity Agency, other government institutions, the Office of the Director of Prosecution, so that when we take some of these things to court, they are able to prosecute and we act as deterrents. The NIS, the National Police Service, and the forensic laboratories, Office of the Data Protection, all this need to be enhanced and strengthened because at some point we are told that WorldCom has its roots somewhere in Kenya as a data processor. So how did they get there, harvest all that information? Yet we have the Office of the Data Protection Commission. So in Kenya, we are harvesting. In Czech, a CCTV lands you into problem. So we need to strengthen those institutions. The legislative framework, the Data Protection Act, compliance is of essence. The National Cybersecurity Strategy, the Information Communication Act, the draft National ICT Policy, Computers and Cybercrime Act, which is now there, other laws, conventions, and frameworks, all those we must be able to comply with. As I conclude my presentation, I got this quotation from Confucius, who I think is Chinese, and he says that real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. That as we sit here, the 183 of us, the starting point is to know our limits of ignorance. Once we've accessed, then now we start getting knowledge in a bid to cure that our ignorance. And I thought this makes a lot of sense, seeing what has happened in this country for the past few days. We seriously need to be conscious of this data privacy policies. I've told you that we have the onboarding that is going on. We must be very careful. Just allow me to stop sharing this and I see if I can share that agreement that I was talking about. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm normally a very practical.
Yes.
Thank you. These are the terms and the conditions for the use of e-citizen. I've just opened them. If you look at their website, it would be somewhere down Palestine, normally in very small fonts. But what interested me is the policy, cybersecurity. It is your responsibility to follow all the basic precepts of cybersecurity in your use of the e-citizen platform. In this regard, you will select a password that is unique and not easy to guess by using special characters, capital, and numbers in your password. You should not share your password with any other person. You will not introduce any viruses, Trojan, ransom, logic bombs. You shall not attempt to hack or without authorization access that. You shall not attempt to stop e-citizen platform from performing any of the functionalities. Well, very, 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 very interesting that the responsibility is shifting to you, the users, to ensure that your systems are foolproof. But I'm not sure if somebody has come to take you through this. Thank God we are here. I'm taking you through this. Look at that disclaimer. That while striving to ensure that e-citizen platform is up to date and we do not give any warranties or guarantees that the e-citizen and information that is contained on it will be current, secure, accurate, complete, or free from bugs and viruses. We saw it, we raised it. This is an information that is in the public domain. What I told you the other day about the Ellen Wayaki case. So I believe nobody would come and tell me that I've brought you by breaching their data. This is what is on the website. And when they come asking the same, I thank God that I'm also an advocate of the High Court and interested in data protection. If somebody tells you that the information that is contained there will be current, secure, accurate, complete, or free, what are you being told? If had not read this, I would not have known. So I was just bringing this to interest you so that together we are able to make these systems that we are using very secure for our purposes. I think you've seen that. I've read from publicly available documents. And with that, I would go back to my slide, having spoken my heart and shown you a few of the pitfalls. I would then call for any questions and answers, which I will gladly answer. Back to you, Moses, Clinton, to help me go through the questions.
Okay. No problem. Thank you for the session. It was really nice. There's a question here. Someone is asking, while traveling internationally, one gives away their personal biodata, and some jurisdictions even check the whole body scan for the travelers. Is this not a contradiction of data protection laws?
Well, you give a lot of personal biodata when you are traveling. The scanners, and I believe solely what they use it for, is strictly for security purposes. And if you look, when you are passing through that scanner, they don't discriminate. Passing through the Frankfurt scanners on my way to Berlin, I'm being scanned the same way the German is being scanned, the same way the Czech is being scanned. And at that point, we believe that that particular jurisdiction have data protection laws, the EU data protection laws that gives compliances. At such levels, then, the levels of compliances are normally very high. But of course, you might find somebody who is interested in abusing that. That might not be the case when you are traveling to places like China and others. And yes, we do give, but we only hope that that data is used for the purposes, identification travel for your identification document. That is the purpose, the lawful purpose. And the scanners, just to ensure that you have not swallowed any drugs and you are doing anything unlawful, so that when your data doesn't have anything, then it is stored in a way that safeguards all those rights. I think that would be my answer for that. The next.
Yeah, that's well put. Someone else is asking, their social media handles are being hacked, for example, WhatsApp. What do hackers use in gaining these privileges?
What to do?
What do hackers gain? What do hackers use to gain these privileges?
Well, that is basically about attacks. Attacks basically mean unauthorized access through your systems, networks, devices, and all that we are talking about. It's about the technologies, the processes that have been mentioned. So there are web-based attacks, and then we find the system attacks, injection of SQL logs. You would get attacks that target the protocol that runs the computers. There are so many attacks. What Walcon was talking about is about a civil attack that had been used to attack Ethereum Classic, which is a cryptocurrency. And by that attack, they were able to steal quite a chunk of that money. So you must have given them an access. And that is what I talked of, the zero trust, future-proofing your WhatsApp. You may have clicked on a link that gave them the opportunity to steal your identity, so that then they are sending messages to your friend, nitumie 2,000 nitarudisha kesho. Check your WhatsApp security. How many people can view your status, last seen, and all those things? There must be, a chain is as strong as the weakest link. There must be somewhere Mauli uliwachilia. You left your phone, gave to your child or your son or daughter, browsing while cooking or watching TV, and they clicked somewhere and it landed on the wrong hands. And through that, you gave them a gateway. So that is why we say that all these things that we are having, your devices, your data, you as a person, the only way if you future-proof is not to trust any of those sources. Many a times unaambiwa Total wanapeana mafuta ya bure. Kwani ni baba yako akupatie kitu ya bure? So you click and you click. We only believe that it is only your father ndiye anaweza kukupatia mali ya bure. No. So you must have given them access through a link. So using the zero trust, don't trust, my friend. Trust but verify. I'm talking to accountants. We've had people cry. One cried on TV saying, I trusted Magari when they were signing for Anglo-Leasing. Be a Thomas. When it comes to data security, be a Thomas. Until you see where the nail went through. Huyo jamaa hajafunguka. Thank you. Next.
That's well put. Someone here is asking about AI, and they're referring to the program that is currently running in Sweden, whereby you have a chip that is under your skin and it facilitates your health status, and you can also access your bank account through ATMs. So the question is, what do you think about this in terms of law and regulation in line with data protection? How safe are these chips?
Oh, I think at the University of Nairobi, there's a unit that we used to call, that is Parkland. It's called Law and Technology. And it looks at all these dynamics. You have a chip under your body. Yes, you are saying it is supposed to be checking your vitals. If you overeated in a restaurant and your sugar levels are going up and you're diabetic, then it's supposed to walk around and inform you. All these things have their pros and cons. And they still can be hacked and accessed. And accessed by the cybersecurity people. If you look at the 7 layers of cybersecurity, at the core is the data, which is contained in your chip. Then I think the next would be that data protections. What are the safeguards? For you, it is making you fulfill your purpose. But the moment we account yako unatembea nayo kwa skin yako, then if you were to walk in River Road, tutakukata panga na tutoke nayo. And we see what we are going to do with it. The next is end-to-end. From your device to the network, what are the security features that you are having there? Then, of course, at the end of it, there's the human, which is the one with the highest levels of vulnerability. Just before that, there's the perimeter. So what are these security features that you have here? Let it serve its purposes, but also have the ethical and the legal consideration. We are talking of the first AI lawyer being launched. The Advocates Act defines who is an advocate of the High Court. Must have done a degree in law, must have cleared the bar exams, must have completed pupillage, must have been admitted to the role of advocates. So anybody who lacks that is unqualified and would then be taken as a masquerader. The challenge that we have now, that AI lawyer, akija amesimama na kanyamolo kotini, what are we going to say? I cannot stand with an unqualified thing. So there are all those things, laws and everything else. For you, it is working for you. But if you come here, yes, we appreciate the role AI, artificial intelligence is doing for us and everything else. But what are the limits? What are the limits? One of the greatest debates that we have that is somebody taking your embryo or your sperm cells, checking them in a refrigerator. Then when I'm now 51, then a child is born out of that. By the time I'm 55, this kid is 4 years being taken to baby class and everything. By the time this child is in class 4, I'm the grandfather. Because when you go in looking at the other children, what about the rights of this other child? Did this child tell you that she wanted or he wanted to be born when you are 60 and you are looking like some old pig lying somewhere? Sorry for using that. So there are ethical considerations. Yes, it's working for you, but how then does it affect the rights of the others? So there are all those considerations that you must make at your own personal level. You let it work for you, but when now it starts to infringe on the others, then it becomes something else. But taking into account issues around cybersecurity, this technology getting complicated, the hackers getting more sophisticated. And so if your network is properly secured under those 3 layers and it is working for you, why not? For me, I would not work with that. I want that thing in my wallet so that when I'm doing my thing, I'm able to swipe my card, my friend, bring the PDQ, and you say it with the bravado of a real Jaluo. It also gives you happiness. Utembea na cheap. Me, I would not. If it works for you, well and good. I think that is also well answered. Next. Hello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, the next question is coming from Blesses Momanyi is saying, how can you recover back your hacked account when all your login details have been changed? For instance, Facebook account.
Well, I'm aware that the team that I have as IT professionals were able even to recover some of those things that we also suffered an attack, by the way, some time back before we became aware. So that one, then we would deal with that particular case with a specific IT personnel, which we can then dedicate and see if that is able to be recovered. It's not something that would apply for everybody else, but I'm sure they can be recovered. When our server was attacked, they were recovered. They worked overnight. And yes, there are 1 or 2, 3 things that can be done to have that recovered. But maybe he will suggest me after we're done with this so that we can refer him to somebody who is now a serious IT guy. Thank you. Next.
Okay, I
Thank
think
you.
this maybe might be our last question for this session. Gideon Misiga is saying, hi Nyamolo, these guys in AI are always ahead. Yes, the security measures are good, but not great. Future proof of next 5 years. Then he proceeds to say that these guys will have everything about us. I refer to this pilot program running in, I think that was tackled. Well, now maybe you can comment about the future, the next 5 years.
I normally say that as accountants, we take a lot of risks. At the end of it, and I've had this argument with ISPAC, that we need to impart proper knowledge around cybersecurity, issues around procurement, You know, when you request your employer to take you to get a course, perhaps on cybersecurity or data protection, you will be told that that is not in your line of service. Accountants handle a lot of financial information that poses a lot of financial risk when those data are exposed to the outside world. So it is important that we arm our accountants with the proper knowledge. Some of us have seen that, and that is why we went to the law school. Because accountant, you will sign. When you sign, some people wanaenda nayo, we unabaki. When kamata Friday come, you are alone on your own. So these are some of the things I decided that this law where you will subject me to, lazima nijue mimi mwenyewe. So it is important, and I encourage that the way the world is going, as you are saying, these guys are ahead of us. The other week I gave an example of somebody who called me. Well, I don't need your private data, please, or information. So mute. Somebody called me. And even before that, he said that he's Mwangi from NTSO. And he starts in a very friendly term that, are you still with where you are working? Then you think this must be an accountant that you have worked with, telling you that, oh, send your CV, where. And you think, oh, this is a colleague. Then you trust. I one day referred one to my brother, Nakumbe ilikuwa Kora. So that is zero trust. Interrogate further before you agree. But I agree with you. Cyber criminals are not sleeping. As you also work on the intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems and automating your security processes, they are also thinking of how to crack and make a wall in that so that they access your system. And I told you that we invited an ethical hacker at some point, and they were able to get into our system through an invite for an international training. Let us beware, let us get knowledge, and that is why we've taken time to do these 2 series of data protections. And you know, ignorance is no defense to the law. Section 7 of the Penal Code. You will not be taken to court under the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act and you say, I did not know. You are corner, my friend. So because of that, we must have all-round knowledge. Even if your employer doesn't want to give you, hiyo ni yake. Today, I think I will be attending at 7 p.m., 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, some webinar on AI, I think from California. Find time and learn, because when you have information, then you are able to navigate some of this. I think next time when we meet, I would have also made contacts and everything else and had more. Let's create time so that we are informed. I think then I've answered that. It is true, we are exposed and we must find a way of reducing our threats, risk reduction, vulnerabilities, and everything. So wherever you are, let this come very clearly so that we have safer places where accountants can operate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was the last question. And from us to you, all you can say is you are really good at what you do. The session was incredible. We've learned a lot. We've taken so many notes. Yeah. So I'd like to ask my colleague Clinton to give us the vote of thanks, then we wind up.
Thank you so much, Moses. You can confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
I want to really take this opportunity to appreciate all of us for having graced this session this day. And most importantly, more thanks is to our trainer, CPA, Kenneth Nyamolo, for your diligence and very powerful presentation there with the good mastery of the content and everything else. And for our participants, we also thank you for honoring our invitation for this free webinar. And we wish to bring to your attention that we love the same. We love the same. I can see CPA is trying to communicate. We love the same session next Wednesday, where we'll also be discussing issues pertaining to businesses and how to start a sustainable business and run it successfully. We've shared the same details, registration details with you in the chat box. You can register for the same so that we get in touch next week for a different training, but in the similar platform, same time. For those who are experiencing issues with getting their certificates, would wish to clarify that, one, ensure that when you are filling out the form, kindly have the right email captured, because you can realize that some people are able to get their certificates. For those who can't, kindly give it some time, copy the link somewhere, and also capture the code rightly, because remember the code is 185, the unique code that you'll put for you to get the certificate for this particular session. If you didn't get your certificate last week, you can as well the same by using the unique code that is 184, using the same link, and select the right training program that will be showing. We'll have the data protection 1 and 2 in the same form.
Thanks.
So if you didn't receive either of them, kindly select appropriately. Otherwise, we've come to the end of this session today. I can see we are still within time. And I want to appreciate all of us. Unless someone has got a concern or CPA has got a final touch to leave us with, he can come aboard then.
Clinton, could Kenneth share his contact?
Yeah, sure. He can answer that. CPA, if you can respond to that kindly. How confident are you with sharing your contact?
Hello. Clinton, let me jump in. Apologies for interrupting, CPA. I think James was in contact with me, and we've talked behind the scenes, so there's no need for that. But I will allow you to speak. You can direct them to your LinkedIn. But go ahead, CPA.
Which is okay. You can share my number if you are in contact with him, so that we don't forestall any communication that is necessary. I think can be given. My parting shot is that let's just continue being vigilant. Try scan our environments around the risks that we are getting exposed to. And yes, we also need to build a coalition so that we are able to go through this together. Otherwise, thank you very much. The person who requested for that number can be given that number. Yes, for those official purposes. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, CPA. I don't know, Daniel, are you in contact with any of us, either Moses, Machi, or I? If you don't, we can see on a way to help you so that you get the contact of CPA. Daniel Kitinji?
Not really.
All right.
You can use your email and share with me later on, no problem.
I can type that number, but you don't use it for cyber security issues. Yes, it's an old number. So I will put my safeguards and not at night.
Yes, thank you so much. CP has shared his contact there. It's the chat box. Daniel, can you capture it?
With everybody, I shared with everybody because I can't see it on the chat.
All right, you can note it somewhere. I can read it to you.
Okay.
0722 315 336. 0722 315 336.
Okay, thanks.
You're most welcome. Otherwise, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of the session, and we can leave at our own pleasure.
Excuse.
Yes.
Can we have the notes for part 1?
Yes, yes. CPA, you can share with us the notes so that we can drop them to them. Those who want the note, you can hang up in the call so that once CPA shares the material, so we can just drop them in the chat box here so that everyone can get them here. That's really having to go through hurdles later on.
Also, let me jump in. As you can see from the screen, we have programs that we're running. So like the first one is information system, data protection, ethics, and digital communication. You can visit our website. The section for events, you're going to see a whole array of events. You can book one. You can feel free to book an event, and we are willing to bring CPA along for a one-on-one training for you and the entire team. We have these trainings all over. We have them in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Arusha, Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia. So feel free to book. You can book for yourself, for one person, or you can extend the invitation to your entire department where you work. We have events running in September. We can see one hands-on data protection and cybersecurity workshop, where we go more in detail. We give you best practices. We give you examples of how this is applied, and yeah, we believe you will love what we do. On the previous screens, I believe you had seen what our clients say about us. They have nothing but good words. Yeah, good words. Yeah, so feel free to check out our website, book a program that you would like, and the programs run for 1 week, 2 weeks. We can even run the programs for a month so that you upskill and level up. Yes, thank you so much. Also, you can check out our